I was considering an ant farm the other day. I haven't seen one of those in a while, with a little glass case and dirt in there, and you can see them moving all around and making little trails and tunnels all through the dirt, and just living their life, taking care of their own business, doing what they need to do to survive. And I was also thinking of bees, in their little hive, and creating honey and doing all the things, the worker bees, the queen bee, and all that stuff, And I was considering the whole myriad of other insects that are all out there that we don't even know of, but each group doing their own thing, oblivious to everything else, oblivious to us, simply believing that their particular existence is the center of everything, And I came across this thought that I'm going to share with you as I was speaking to someone about prayer recently. And for me, I'm a believer in prayer. I'm a believer in answered prayer, because I've experienced answered prayers. But I'm also a believer in science and classical physics and quantum physics, Not that I'm all that, but I'm just intrigued by these sciences. And so I'm not one to discount one for the other. And so I've been in the Christian religion for some time now. Was an atheist, had a revelation, that epiphany that I call it, that there is something greater than me. Okay, and I've been on this journey for like over 30 years. But I'm still on the scientific journey. Basically, I'm a student of information and knowledge. I like to challenge myself. I like to grow. And so what I have come to the conclusion, and not just a quick conclusion, but in a course of years, is that I embrace both. And we're going to talk about that today. I think I was speaking to someone recently about prayer, about how important prayer is, and how there are certain things that seem to be just out of our hands and simply bring a frustration to us in the process. And we can live for years and years simply being frustrated, wanting something to happen and praying for something to happen. And what I want to share is that there is a connection between our existence and our prayers, okay? And I think that as I'm looking at the quantum physics, theories, some of them tie into it. See, the whole science, the quantum physics and all this stuff it's not really answering the questions on why. It's simply revealing what is and what's being observed, okay? And what frustrates me sometimes is when I look at the religious people, who embrace a certain spirituality. And then I look at the scientists who sort of reject the idea of spirituality. Yet both sides are at a particular point where they can't move any further. And not to be able to explain something, a lot of times is easier to simply deny that it's true than to have to deal with it, okay? And so you find the religious or the spiritual people that are denying anything that has to do with science, as is it an affront to God? And then you see the scientists denying anything that is spiritual, seeing it as simply nonsensical, okay? And so we're stuck. We're stuck at a stalemate, a standstill there. And I believe this is what we're going to examine today, okay? So I'm looking at the uncertainty theory principle and the entanglement theory, okay? The entanglement is being able to recognize that something that is here is the same as something that is there. And the uncertainty principle is believing that something is there. You're not really sure what the something is, you just know something is there and you don't know what it is until you actually see it, okay? And what I'm trying to do is tie that into prayer, okay? And not the religion. See, the religions, that's the culprit in all this. Religions were created by men, okay? And maybe with good intention, because they didn't have the capacity to conceive or understand what this existence is really all about. So it was necessary then to believe that there was something greater, but then to write a story about it and fit ourselves into the mix, okay? Sort of if the ants were creating their own, religion and holy books, they wouldn't include us, and neither would the bees or any other insects out there. Because all that they see, all that we see, is simply ourselves as the center of everything, okay? And what I want to suggest today is that the ants don't have it right. The bees don't have it right, and we don't have it right. We're not the center of anything. We're just part of this, okay? And until we begin to comprehend what it is we are a part of, we're going to find ourselves flailing and not really satisfying, not really making things happen. Now, we can be like the ant and create the community. We can be like the bees and create the produce, as we are as human beings have created all this amazing stuff that we have created, on our world. But that personal satisfaction, that personal disappointment, there's a reason for that. And what I'm suggesting is that what the scientists have begun to examine and understand, and the stuff is true. I mean, they don't even know why the things happen that they see. They're just simply giving us what they see, what they observe, what they mathematically can figure out. But they don't know why either. I was listening to this one physicist the other day. He was saying, even with the principle like Isaac Newton, when the apple fell from the tree or whatever happened, did the apple fall because of gravity? Or did the apple falling create the gravity? I mean, there are certain things that we just don't know. And another physicist I was listening to was talking about the possibility of there having been nothing instead of all that we see. And if there was nothing, there was nothing. I mean, no space, no time, no anything, just absolute nothing. It has to be considered. So whatever way we believe, whether we believe that there was a big bang from nothing, or that there was an entity that said, let there be, from nothing, what I'm suggesting is that it's the same thing, okay? And when I talk about an entity, see, the problem are the religions. Because automatically, when you talk about an entity, automatically you get this idea of God and Israel or Islam or Hindus, and you get all this kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Because those things are created by men, so there's this issue of anthropomorphism, even if you are creating a deity. Because if the ants were creating a deity, what would that deity entail, and how would it interact with the ants, or the bees, or any of the other insects? So what I'm suggesting is there's something outside of what we see as our existence, and the only way we can truly begin to conceive is recognizing we are simply a part of it, okay? And so what I see is the possibility, like, given a petri dish or some kind of mini biosphere that we might have created. And within that biosphere, certain things begin to pop up. Okay? And so even when we talk about our universe, what is our universe contained in? And see, this is the consideration that we can't go outside of, because how can we know? Because the universe is all that we know, and it encapsulates all that we know. We cannot conceive anything outside of it. Everything that we think, everything that we consider is based on us. Even when we consider life on different planets within this universe, we consider them kind of looking like us, or needing the elements to survive that we need to survive. When simply this just happened to be within this part of our existence, which is why we're here. To consider that we are here, then we'd have to logically conclude that there were so many other possibilities that simply could not exist, and we just happened to be the ones that did. Okay? And so then you would think then that outside of our little ant farm that we are encapsulated in, outside of our little beehive that we have been dwelling in, believing this is the universe. There are other possibilities outside of this universe, possibly. But let's just stay in the universe for now. What I want to suggest is as we consider the concept of gravity, and we believe that it exists. Why it exists, we don't know, but that it exists, we do. And we govern our lives, or our lives are governed for us accordingly, okay? When we walk, when we sit, all the things that we do, even our internal functions, many of them are governed by gravity as well. That what I want to suggest is, and I believe we suggested in another program, but I want to go a little bit further, is that there are certain principles and laws then that are found within this environment, this universe in which we live, that we are governed by, or that we are governed through. Even though we can't see them, we know that they exist. That's what the whole quantum physics thing is about. What I'm suggesting is, and I think what I suggested in the last program was the concept of sowing and reaping. You know, what goes around comes around. You know, we call that a religious principle, but what I want to suggest, even from observation from communities all over the world, historically, is that it's true. However you say it, whether you call it karma, whether you call it what goes around comes around, chickens coming home to roost, you reap what you sow, whatever, we have observed that good follows good, evil follows evil. And what I want to suggest then, and what I suggested in that program, was that was simply another law, an invisible law, just like gravity, that you can't see, but nonetheless real. And so it's very difficult then for us. We can grasp something like gravity because it's what we've been taught all our lives. Even though we can't see it, we see the result of it and we grasp it and we believe that it's true. What I'm suggesting is that law of gravity is no less real than the law of sowing and reaping, than the law of what goes around comes around. You can't see it, but it just happens that what you do comes back. We do reap what we sow. Okay? Not from a religious perspective. I don't want not going there, but simply from within this universe, within this environment in which we live, that concept is real. Okay? And so I believe then that there are a lot of laws that we are being governed by, or that we are being governed through, or being governed through us at times, that we're just not really aware of. Like the words of our mouth, or what we speak, or what we believe somehow manifest. See, when I was a younger person, I was logical. And I never believed that stuff, you know. That's not logical. What's going to happen is going to happen. I don't have any way, proving that. I can do whatever I want to do. And things are going to turn out how they would have turned out. Well, I don't know if that's actually true. We can create situations by our actions. We can create results by our actions. And so this is a law, I believe, a law that governs this, where we are currently living, where we dwell. And so I believe there are a whole lot of laws. And as I expressed in another program, that these nuggets that we can find in some of the religious books, that were like ideas and considerations that popped into the minds and hearts of certain men who were in tune. I believe that there is a connection that we all have with the environment that we live in. And some of us are simply more in tune with that environment. We could say, I have a discernment, or I have a feeling, or that something was going to happen. Those might very well be true. Simply an individual tapping into what we really are not that well versed in. Now, that's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so let me get to the point about the prayer part. Okay. So we're living in this, and this is to the religious people especially, because some of the most miserable people in the world are the religious people, because they want to believe that this stuff really works, but their prayers aren't being answered. Okay, and I'm simply trying to share with you why, and for you people who are not religious, who are not spiritual, who don't believe in any of that stuff, I think you can still grasp a hold of this, because it's a non-religious concept, prayer even. Because the prayer is simply the believing part. Okay. And so we've been convinced, within the religions that what it is you're supposed to believe and who it is you're supposed to believe in, and this is going to happen, and people have been doing this for centuries. What I'm suggesting is the key is the belief part. And that's where the power is, what you believe. And how do you affix yourself to that belief, and how does it work? Okay? And what I'm suggesting is, even in the quantum physics realm, they're scratching in this entanglement thing, and they're scratching with this uncertainty principle. And what I'm suggesting is, this is how it works. But I can't tell you why, other than it's simply a law. Believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. We get that from the scripture. I believe that's a nugget. It doesn't validate the entire religion, but it means that somebody had this prescient idea that believing in your heart has the power to make things happen. Okay? And without even realizing why. What I'm suggesting is, it is a law, a universal law of this environment that we are dwelling in, that what you believe you can make manifest. Okay? And sort of like, in a kind of evolved way with that entanglement theory. That what you believe will manifest here. And then the uncertainty principle is that, but you don't know that it arrives until you see it. And it may not be exactly what you thought it was, but that's okay too. I'm just suggesting so I'm suggesting then is in prayer. And you can pray whoever you wish to pray to. I don't believe that's an issue, as long as you're good and your intentions are good. Is that you ask once, and then every day after that, just give thanks, because what you're doing is you're shoring up, you're creating a belief within you that is actually what's going to make this thing happen, because you really don't believe. Even when we pray, whether you're religious, if you're a religious person, if you're praying, most of the time we don't believe. We want it, and we wish it, and we hope it happens, but we don't believe. Because we're human, and we're facing real situations in our lives. So when you use this particular formula, I guess, of simply praying one time for a thing, and then every day after that, just thanking for that thing, even though you don't see it, the uncertainty principle, even though you don't see it, give thanks for it. Even if you don't see exactly how it's going to manifest, give thanks for it. What you're doing is you're creating a belief within you that this has happened, even though you don't see it. So you're beginning to place yourself then within this law, this universal principle, this law that we are dwelling within, creating a true belief in your heart of something that you don't see. Okay? So it's not the religion. It's the belief in you, because you are simply a part of this whole thing, functioning in this, and this is functioning through you. You have to figure out. So we may not know how it works. We may not even know why it works, but we know that if you believe, even though you don't see it, it's there. The problem is we can't believe it. It's hard. It's impossible for us to believe what we can't see. So each day you're just giving thanks for what you believe is there, although you don't see it. It will manifest. It will materialize. And what materializes will be either what you wanted or better. And that's the uncertainty principle. When you look at it, that's that superposition of what you're believing to be true. It could be this, it could be that. And not only this or that, it can be a whole myriad of things. That's called a superposition in quantum physics. And you're believing that it's there. You just don't know exactly what it is. But what you can count on is that it's going to be good, because that's what you believe. What you have to believe it. Believing it is what makes it manifest. And what ends up manifesting actually will be what you desire or better. Crazy as that sounds. That is the connection that I see just with prayer and with this quantum physics thing. Is that if we stop rejecting what we don't understand or what we don't want to consider, that might be the key to helping us get to the point where we do understand more, or at least we can make it function for us in a much better way. It's not difficult for me to believe that we are part of a creation of one sort or another. So what we have described as the Big Bang is the best that we can do. Because there is almost no way possible the creation is ever going to conceive the creator. Okay, unless it's been revealed. And when I say creator, I'm not using a religious. The religions were created to give us what we needed to try to comprehend what we couldn't conceive. But I'm simply saying that there is this existence that we are dwelling in that may very well be contained in that which was prepared for us. And as we try to discover, as we just see how the universe is expanding, constantly expanding, and we see black holes, and we understand somewhat event horizons, but not really. And all this stuff that we're grasping and comprehending, we're comprehending that it exists, and we're also comprehending the effects, but we can't figure out how or why. And so I'm just suggesting is that the religious people need to loosen up off of denying the science. The scientist needs to loosen up off of denying what might be spiritual. Not religious, but spiritual. Because we are all spiritual. Now, as when I just give this as we close out here, the spiritualness of us is that we are invisible. we don't, this is not me. I'm inside. The animated part of me, that is moving, that is moving this body to do what it does, is moving this body to say what it does, to act as it does, and all this stuff. It's not me, it's the body. I could cut off my hand, it's still me. And so that part of you that's actually you, that's invisible, that's actually part of this expanse that we've been talking about, this whole universe, all the stuff within the universe, we're part of that stuff. And as we are part of that stuff, we are evidently an intellectual part of that. That is, and I have to believe that there is a particular reason for that. For us to grasp what we're talking about right now, for us to grasp the quantum physics, for us to grasp the spiritual nature of ourselves. The quantum physics, which is like the thing, I don't believe it even scratches the surface to what is. It's just beginning to comprehend, hey, the apple fell from the tree. That's quantum physics is from an overall perspective of our existence and what our existence is comprised within. We're just scratching a piece of the surface trying to understand, but let's not deny that. Let's take a piece of that scratched surface and apply it to this scratched surface and try to comprehend where we are. And what I'm suggesting, there is a place where we can grasp a hold of what might seem supernatural and make this thing manifest. And I think the key is just even in your prayers. So the scientists over here, they're figuring it all out, but I'm saying based on what they figured out and based on what we kind of comprehend or believe, there's a way that this works together. And that's the whole, even in the holy books, telling us about believing in our hearts and confessing with our mouth and all that, that's all it really is just simply believing. The whole confessing with your mouth thing is just the example of if a person really believes it, that's what they're going to be saying. So it's all about belief. And if you believe it, the key is we're having a very difficult time believing, just as human beings in the flesh. So believe it. First, if you recognize who you are, that you are not this flesh, that you are simply dwelling within this, you are animating this. And look, and go to a funeral, look in the casket. That's not the individual, that's this body that he was once animating. Where is he? Where is she now? Back where they were. I don't know what all that entails. Who does? That's going to take a whole lot of more understanding. But we can't understand at this place where we are right now. We are a part of that, the cosmos, or whatever we want to call it. We are a part of that. We're not simply in it. This body's in it, but we are a part of it. And we have the opportunity now, hand in hand with the scientists, even though they might deny it, to recognize how it might work for us. Okay? And that's what prayer is. Prayer is believing. How do you believe? Continually give thanks. Continually give thanks. And your belief will strengthen even before you see it. Even while whatever you are believing for is in its superposition. But what I can believe is that it will be good. And it may be better than what you are asking for. But it's certainly not going to be worse. And I think what we have today, too many situations, we have opportunities to go for things that are not really the things that we should be going for because we don't have the patience or even the insight, ability to conceive, to believe and wait for that right thing to manifest. Okay?